Playmakers, the daily sports bulletin from the bridge that brings you the big news and the top plays from the world of Indian sports. Hello and welcome to the Playmakers, the program where we bring to you the newsmakers from the world of sport and address topics that impact the sports ecosystem in India. My name is Rahul Kargal. Thank you for joining this program. The Badminton World Federation, or the BWF, is set to begin testing a radical new 3x15 scoring system in select competitions from April this year. The trial will last for a 6-month period and will take place in select continental championships and Grade 3 tournaments. And this will run from April to October this year. And these Grade 3 tournaments are the International Challenge Tournament, International Series, and Future Series competitions. The BWF, which is the decision-making unit of the world governing body, gave a thumbs up to the 3x15 scoring system, which incidentally is a part of the alternative laws of badminton. And this endorsement came in November last year. But why was this change made in the first place? And how will it impact badminton? To tell us more about this, we've got with us celebrated badminton coach and Dronacharya awardee Vimal Kumar and professional badminton player Tanvi Lad with us on the program. Vimal Kumar, thank you very much for joining us live on the Playmakers tonight.
Thanks, Rahul, for having me here.
And Tanvi Lad, you're a professional badminton player yourself. Thank you very much for joining this live broadcast.
My pleasure, Rahul. Thank you for having me.
We've got plenty to talk about Vimal Kumar and Tanvi over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. We'd like to hear from you about why this change now, what are the implications, so on and so forth. But let's begin with initial reactions when you first heard the news. Yourself first, Vimal.
Yeah, I think the World Badminton Federation has been contemplating this for quite some time. The last maybe 20 years, I'm seeing this. They have come out with a 7-point scoring system in the late 2000-2001 phase. They came out with something. Then they have come out with a 15-point scoring system. Then they changed in 2006. They adopted this present running scoring system that is 21 points, and it is really going well. And I really don't understand the necessity now to make these changes, because I feel the Badminton Federation should be looking into making other changes in the sport. How the playing condition. I can talk about a lot of things, but I'm little disappointed that the BWF is only concentrating on changing the scoring format. They should be doing a lot more on the technical aspects, especially with regard to referrals and the line decisions and the players' rights and playing conditions, the shuttlecocks, and because like I've always mentioned, badminton is a very technical and a very physical sport, and so these are things how the playing arena, the conditions can be bettered for the players, because they should look at ideal playing conditions for a badminton player, because the players these days are very fit. They put in a lot of hours, and so that is something they should. Because eventually, if you keep fiddling with the scores, and we should not end up like a pickleball badminton, pickle badminton. That should not happen.
And we'll come to all of those aspects that you mentioned about what else they can possibly do. Tanvi, your initial reaction to this radical change that has been proposed?
I think I would second what Vimal sir had to say in terms of my initial reaction being slightly on the negative side. But if I take a step back and just look at the intent behind this proposed change, right? The BWF is definitely looking at making the sport more broadcast friendly, more viewership friendly, to really engage with both the casual and hardcore badminton fans across the world. But having said that, there is a lot of low-hanging fruit that I feel, which we can elaborate over the course of this conversation, which can be, tackled first before tinkering with the scoring, which forms the basis of how players win, and it's something that players have gotten accustomed to since the change in 2006. Um, and secondly, from a scheduling perspective, yes, there have been complaints from players on the tour that matches tend to become really long. The week, especially in the Super Thousands, every match lasts over 90 minutes, and players struggle to recover. So, from a scheduling perspective and a recovery perspective, making matches shorter might help with the recovery aspect. But there are better ways of doing that rather than tinkering with a well-established scoring system.
Correct, yes. And I think we've lost Vimal Kumar, and he'll rejoin us in just a bit. We can continue on the point, Tanvi, about possibly long games at the moment as one of the reasons why the BWF is coming up with this particular proposal. Now, some of the reports that came in terms of reaction soon after, H.S. Pranoy, for instance, spoke to the Indian Express, and he said something similar that you're talking about right now. Roughly, the game lasts for about 70 odd minutes, right? Which isn't really long, but the federation, seems to be suggesting that games at the moment are really long. The players are not getting time to recover, right? And therefore, 3 by 15 can reduce the playing time. Vimal Kumar, thank you for joining us. We can probably begin with your response to that. Are the games really long now? Are the players struggling to recover, and therefore this proposal?
No, I don't agree with that view from the BWF. And in fact, ours is a very technical and it's a tough sport. And players earlier, it was an endurance-based sport when it was a 15-point scoring system. Now this is going really well for the players. Like I mentioned earlier, the players are all really fit, and and they're coping quite well. And of course, there are many tournaments, and it all depends on how the players manage tournaments. But as far as the duration is concerned, it is required. Because like badminton, like I've said, it's a very technical and a very physical sport. There are long rallies happening, because compared to 15 or 20 years back, if you look at it, the players these days are extremely fit. They put in a lot more training. They understand the science has improved, and so the players are in a lot better physical shape. If you look at it, the top 30, 40 players are of similar level. So if you try to shorten the score and take away the toughness away from the sport, a lot of skill is involved in our sport. And if you take all that aspect away, and if you cut down the duration, it will become just like a bashing game. And so that is not what badminton is. There should be rallies. The players, the spectators should be enjoying those rallies, and there should be the duration should be it is 70, 80 minutes is nothing. And it should be, you should allow the player, the spectators to enjoy the sport. And so that is the tough part of the sport. And
Yes.
And it should be continued. And if you shorten it, I don't know. I've always been against reducing
Yeah.
the scoring part and taking the toughness away from the sport.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of observers, and Tanvi, I'd like to bring you in on this particular point. A lot of observers feel that, if the 3 by 15 proposition were to go ahead, the games will undoubtedly be shorter, of course. The rallies would probably be shorter. And how does a player start thinking in this new 3 by 15 format? Give us a player's perspective, Tanvi.
Sure. I think from a player's perspective, you're definitely going to come in with a mindset that I need to win quick points. And that's where the quality of every rally, every point is going to start taking a bit of a hit. When you enter a match which is a best of 3, 21 points, tactically you've conditioned your mind to maybe give yourself the first 7 points to assess the conditions. Is there drift in the hall? What is my opponent trying to do? Pick up on patterns, which will now you won't have the opportunity to really settle in. You'll it's going to be you'll have to be on the right jumping right into it from get go. So I think this will favor slightly more attacking, explosive players who will look to, really attack from love all and get those first few quick points, which might put a slightly more overall developed player under pressure. So those are some of the repercussions that I see coming off shortening the format. If you look at a Grand Slam in tennis, which I would equate to a Super 1000 level tournament, those matches stretch to 4 and 5 hours. So, what is 70 minutes? What is 90 minutes? I think players today, especially like Vimal sir said, everyone's fit, everyone's strong, everyone's training using the latest techniques in sports science. Um, it's boiling down to the mind, tactics, and your technique on court. And I think you need to give every player the opportunity to actually, play to his potential, and that will only come when he's spending that time on court. So I definitely think that the quality aspect will take a hit if the format of the tournament is or matches is shortened.
Uh,
I would
Vimal,
also, sorry to cut you in. I would also want to add in terms of, we're seeing with the IPL and with other leagues coming up in other sports, yes, the formats are being made crisper, shorter, to bring in a slightly more dynamic environment, which makes it more interesting for fans and which also allows the younger lot to play to their potential as they have nothing to lose. So experimenting with a shorter format in national leagues, maybe even some of the lower tier tournaments, might be something to consider, but definitely not tinker with the super thousands, which are like your grand slams of world badminton.
correct, and that's where we'd like to mention for the benefit of the viewers that this change at the moment is a change that is being tested at the moment. There's a 6-month trial period. The test will take place in Grade 3 tournaments and continental championships alone. So we will not see this at the moment at big ticket tournaments. Vimal Kumar, I just wanted to bring you in on the point about entertaining fans, right? From a observer's perspective, the game at the moment is entertaining enough already, right? So shorter points, would that translate to greater entertainment? Give us a perspective of an observer.
No, I don't agree. At the moment, it is really going well. The public is enjoying. If you look at the viewership for badminton in India or China or Malaysia, Indonesia, all these top Asian nations, even in England and Denmark, everywhere, the viewership is excellent and everybody is enjoying the sport. And so I really don't see that a problem. But if you look at it, if you provide the players good shuttlecocks, the right playing conditions, that is the most important aspect, rather than fiddling with the scoring system again. And I'm emphasizing on that point, because playing conditions feather is very light. The shuttlecock is just 4.5 grams. That's what everybody needs to understand. So when you in the playing arena, if there is too much of drift and such things, it affects the players. The free flow play. And that is happening many times in big tournaments. It is not being addressed at all from the Badminton World Federation side. So they have to be really ensure that these tournaments, the playing conditions are perfect for the players. Because like I mentioned, when you give ideal playing conditions, the players will play to their potential. Eventually, what we want is the players should be, because I've told you, they've all trained. They all train very hard. They're all very fit guys. They are really superbly fit. Because for an individual sport like badminton, if you look at it, squash and badminton are the toughest individual sport. You can't compare it with tennis and others. Tennis and all, they play for 5.5 hours. But ball in play in tennis for a 5.5 hours game is just 40 minutes. Whereas in a 1 hour badminton, when you play a hard badminton game, 1.5 hours, the ball in play is 50 minutes to an hour. So that's statistics. It's all been done earlier. All this research has been done. It is all available. So that is what I'm saying. These things, they should ask the top players playing, get their views, and it is very important. If at all, in my opinion, you want to reduce the scoring plus duration, maybe the prime events are men's singles and women's singles. That is, whether everybody likes it or not, that's a fact. Everybody looks to singles matches. That is a prime. Then comes the men's doubles. Then comes the mixed doubles, and then comes the women's doubles. So these events, maybe you can look at maybe 15 points or slightly reduce, like in tennis. But singles, in my opinion, they should not touch it. And it is very entertaining. You should develop good personalities for the sport.
Yeah.
And we have good personalities. And,
Yes,
that's the key.
Yeah, in fact, one of the points that you made was about the fitness levels of the players, so reducing the not really required. The players are fit enough already to go the distance. Tanvi, I just wanted to bring you in here. Victor Axelsen has been very bullish, or rather, he's been very vocal rather about rest days between the games. He put up a post recently. He says 1 to 2 more rest days. It's important to hype the matches up, right? He says better scheduling. From a player standpoint, Tanvi, is
True.
that something that they should have looked at, the federation, instead of reducing the time, duration of a specific game?
Definitely. I mean, two aspects to this. One is, of course, from a recovery standpoint. From the player's perspective, every match at that level is long. Is the rallies are long, the matches are hard, and that tends to take its toll. On the joints, on the muscles. You need time to recover, and especially some of the older players. Victor's been vocal about this. HS Pranoy has been fairly vocal about this. Especially players above 30 could do with a couple extra hours of rest, and it's not uncommon if you compare it. Again, I compare it with tennis because Grand Slams are usually scheduled across 2 weeks, where all the top players have those rest days to kind of recoup both mentally and physically and rise to the challenge again. So, from a player's perspective, definitely slotting in some rest days and maybe extending the length of the Super Thousands at least across 8 to 10 days would make a huge difference. And secondly, from a viewership and broadcast perspective, I think uh, the rest days would give enough time to, say, the social media team and the marketing team of BWF to hype up the matches. It's not uncommon in boxing or in even in tennis to see a lot of uh, you know matches of the top players are built up. There's a lot of hype created both on social media and to sort of garner the viewership. So that's something which, if slotting in the rest days, might help from that perspective and might overall benefit viewership and broadcast.
Yes, and Vimal Kumar, so essentially now that the trial period will commence in some of the so-called junior tournaments, the players will obviously try to, adapt. They have no choice. They're a part of the trial, right? And the federation will obviously gather data, gather feedback, and then they'll subsequently take a call sometime in 2026, we're told, right? So between now and then, according to you, who should the federation be really talking to? Should they just be gathering data from these trials, or they should be talking to some of the top players and hear from all parties? What should they be doing according to you?
Now, in my opinion, I think they should talk to the top players, because eventually their views matter, and they are the one who's going to, because they have got to that level going through the system, and they have reached there, and that needs to be, we need to respect that, and so their views, in my opinion, comes first. And otherwise, the very young ones, you introduce this format, and then if they come up playing this way and coming up to the next stage, it is okay. They will be able to adapt it. Okay. But still, as long as, in my opinion, VWF should restrict this to just the challenge and the series events, because where the playing conditions, again, in my opinion, are poor. And, they have to take care of that. And so you can put them through, like in tennis, the challenge and series tournaments, where they play and they come up, and then they have to be in the tough league, and so that should continue that way. And so I hope, BWF again takes the views, including just retired former greats. They should take their views, and I'm sure they can get a lot more inputs. In fact, BWF should invest some money on bringing them on board. Bring in the translators for them and get their views, and that is not being done. Because those who can talk in English, it is okay. Their views are heard, but others, I feel, it is not really heard properly, because it's nothing to do with Asia and Europe. I'm not comparing all those stuff. If you look at the Olympic champion is Victor Axelsson. He's from Denmark, and he has some very good views, good others. But we should not take that, consider him as a rebel. In fact, we should, support him and get their views, because they are more vocal. So that needs to be respected, and bring him on board and do things a lot more better. I think, because our sport, there is nothing, in fact, there is absolutely no shortage of viewership, popularity, everything. It is really, really good. And so we should not do anything, to bring it down.
Correct, yes, and the viewership is extremely important aspect in this entire, scoring ecosystem as well. And Tanvi, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Right, should this go ahead? Right, we essentially be looking at a T20 scenario for badminton, isn't it? What will it possibly do to the business of the sport? Right, shorter games, shorter points, attacking flavor. Would that essentially translate to, more brand collaborations and advertising revenue? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel at like Vimal sir rightly said, at a series and challenge level, tournament where there are multiple rounds of qualifying, players have to play, say, 2 matches a day, 3 matches a day. That's where maybe to reduce the time, spent on court and actually get to some of the latter rounds in the tournament, it might be wise to experiment with this format over the next couple months and then come to a conclusion. But as far as the actual viewership and the business side of sport is concerned, it's I personally feel it's a bad idea to incorporate the scoring system, especially at the higher level of the sport. It is okay to maybe incorporate it in national leagues, national tournaments, which are anyways started to commercialize the sport and to make it popular, to help players build a brand and personality, and outside the regular circuit. So that's where quicker, shorter games, bringing in brand endorsements, ad placements, those are the avenues that I feel might help to commercialize the sport. As a badminton player, it pains me to not have a full-fledged league. That I'm working in tennis and paddle leagues, and I strongly feel that badminton players have personalities of their own. They are the sport per se has its demands, both physically, mentally. It's one of the most complex sports to play. It's just that it's not been marketed in an ideal way, and players have been facing repercussions. I think we can do a lot better. So I'm all for commercializing the sport, bringing in brands, bringing in the commercial side to make the sport more popular, to help badminton players actually consider it as a viable career option, even if you're, say, top 100 in the world. Not just limited to top 10 or top 15 in the world. So I'm all for that, but there are far better ways of doing it than tinkering with the basis of the sport, which is its scoring system.
Yes, well said there. So we're almost out of time. So final question to both of you, starting with Vimal Kumar, yourself first. Thumbs down, essentially, to the new scoring system. That's your verdict. But if there's one ask that you will have of the BWF, right? What will that be, right? What should they really be now focusing on instead of trying to, you know, tinker around with the scoring system? Just a final thought.
Yeah, I think as far as I'm concerned, I feel during the match, the present matches, I feel they should bring in referrals. Now, if you look at it, the players can challenge 3 times the line course. That takes ages to come on. It is never done quickly. They should improve on that aspect. The second one is referral. The chair umpire sitting there and the service judge. At crucial times, they just say service fault. But the player should have the right to ask for a referral. You should give that opportunity for the player, because they brought in that rule, saying that it's 115 centimeters and the racket above that, and it is very complex. At that time, the player should be given an opportunity. That itself will be a good commercial TV break. They can get revenue from that. They should look at introducing that. At least the player should have twice. You can ask for referrals. That is, and even taps at the net. The chair umpire just say fault, and you cannot argue. There is no replay. You can't watch it. No, what is these things? And then the quality of the air conditioning and inside the hall, the flight of the shuttle, that's very, very important. One side is too quick, one side is too slow, and you can't destroy a player like that. They have come prepared, and you give them again playing condition, because badminton, the attacking players should be able to play, the defensive players both should be able to show their skill. So when it's a perfect shuttles, perfect conditions, that will come on display. Because the players, badminton, I've told you, it's a very technical sport. It is a lot of skills are involved. The players should be able to show those skills. So these are things, BWF, in my opinion, should be looking into and improving. And, I hope, they give more importance to such things.
Yes, and the Tanvi Lad, final thoughts from you. What would you rather have the BWF focus on instead of tinkering with the point system?
Two things from my side to add to what Vimal sir said about playing conditions. I think we very often, at least if I look back on my playing career, I've lost quite a few matches just because I wasn't able to settle in to the playing conditions in a hall where we've not necessarily had the opportunity to practice much. So there's been a lot of drift. One side is slow, one side is fast. Sometimes the temperature inside the hall is very low, and as an Indian badminton player, we're not really always able to adjust to the temperature inside the hall. And factors like this come into play and take away from the months of effort that you've actually put in. Besides, of course, the money spent to travel, so on and so forth. So I think playing conditions really need to be focused on, and a standard needs to be maintained no matter which part of the world we're competing in. And secondly, I think from a fan perspective, and a TV viewership perspective, I think one, the marketing, hyping up key matches both on social media and on the BWF website, across news channels, really hyping up potential clashes between the top players, and also the camera angles. Badminton is so fast. Badminton is such a fast game that very often the camera angles don't do justice to the speed of the rally, especially in doubles. So I think we can maybe have a larger number of cameras inside the hall, even maybe a spider cam to actually capture those dives and some of the trick shots that are played and the intensity of the rallies. It's a high intensity sport, and the broadcast and the production needs to do justice to what's actually happening on court. So those are the two things. Maybe fan zones outside the arena. That's another thing that most of most of the tennis tournaments across the world are painted in the colors of the event happening. And there's a lot to do outside just watch matches for a fan visiting the arena. There's a fan zone. There are interactive things to do outside the sport. Um, so that's the commercial and the fan engagement side of things, which I think badminton really needs
Yes.
to up its game on.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's all that we have time for. But the verdict is pretty unanimous from both of you. Um, you're essentially stating that the sport itself is perfect the way that it is at the moment. There is fan following, there is viewership, so you don't really have to tinker with the point system with a goal of reducing the games and possibly trying to make it more attractive for the viewers. Instead, focus on the nitty gritties of the game itself, such as introduction of review systems, service reviews if possible, standardization of the infrastructure, ensuring that there's certain degree of control on the drift, so on and so forth. And Tanvi, you spoke in detail about marketing the sport, fan zones outside, broadcast improvements, so on and so forth. So both of you have been extremely vocal about not necessarily having to tinker with the game with a view of making it far more exciting. Instead, let the sport talk for itself. And Vimal Kumar, you mentioned about how the PWF should essentially talk to the top players and get feedback from them as opposed to running trials such as this and gather data points on that aspect. Thank you very much, Vimal Kumar and Tanvi Lad, for taking the time out to speak with us this evening, and we'll keep coming back to you for more insights such as this going forward. Vimal Kumar, thank you very much, and Tanvi Lad, thank you as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you
Yep.
so much. Pleasure.
Yep. Bye, Tanvi.
That was Vimal Kumar, celebrated coach, and Tanvi Lad, professional badminton player, joining us live on the Playmaker. So the verdict is pretty unanimous. The sport is in good hands as it is. There's no need to tinker with the point scoring system. Instead, focus on some of the nitty gritties of the sport, such as fan engagement, providing players with adequate breaks in between games, improve the scheduling in such a way that a player, when he or she plays a full-fledged three-game encounter, has an opportunity to recover and then travel to the next venue. Broadcasting improvements can be brought about, and there is absolutely no need to turn badminton or create another version of it, such as a T20 shorter version of the sport with a view of entertaining the fans. So the game is good as is. That was what Tanvi Lad and Vimal Kumar had to say on the program. Thank you very much for joining this live broadcast of the Playmakers, and continue to follow the bridge.in for our continued coverage of Indian sports. My name is Rahul Kargal. Thanks for watching. Until next time.